That's the budget, the number 6 budget. Oh, for the, this is, I think at the top of page 5, we were just getting into it. We just thought it'd be lovely. Yeah, bottom of page 4, law enforcement is where law enforcement starts. Okay, are we live?
You're right.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order, approve minutes, May 27th, 2025.
I move to approve the minutes.
I second.
25.
Can I write on this?
Yeah.
They're just running me over there, so. Okay, print it out. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. So we will just, jump number 6, if everybody's agreeable to that, to go over the law enforcement services budget. So that if we have any questions, Chief Shiraki is here.
On page.
The bottom of page 4
Oh,
is law enforcement
Got
services
it.
budget. So, do you wanna talk about your budget at all, or where you're at, or you
Sure,
just
I
wanna?
don't have the,
Don't have it memorized?
You don't have it memorized? I know.
That is right on the page, so there's a few on page 4, the top of your budget's on page 4,
okay.
and then that's
And then on page 5, yeah.
Sure with me.
No, you're good.
Page 4 was in the back.
That's what
Yeah.
that was the problem I had too.
Math is hard. And check. Law enforcement, firearms, body, yeah, so I did ask for, out of, when we spoke about the rifles upgrades, Lonnie, did I ask for that out of resort tax? Did we establish that out of resort tax?
I believe so. And her, yeah, so we're just doing general fund.
Correct, so everything with the exception, and please correct me if I'm wrong, comparative to last year's budget is fairly much the same. However, I did ask for an increase in drug enforcement and then canine maintenance, which I don't think is a huge ask regarding the dog. Just to cover small expenses, like, vet bills, like the handler himself has, financially been funding the dog and all the maintenance himself, to which he's never complained about. However, I figured it would be nice if, there was a time where the dog needed vet care to chip in some money for it.
Yeah.
The dog has numerous drug seizures, deployments, and he's a force multiplier, and he's been an asset to the community, the department, and other agencies as well.
So you have, noticed a positive impact on having the dog? I mean, I guess that's
Very
our
much
main
so.
question, because, it wasn't an actual budgeted item when we
Correct,
got the
yeah.
dog.
So,
So we just need the justification, I guess,
oh,
to
100%,
move
I can
forward
have the
with.
handler come in and speak to it, and the
Okay.
sergeant that is overseeing the program as well.
Okay.
They'd be more than happy to do that. So one of the things that I wanted to speak about too, and I've spoken about it in public health and safety, is that over the last 1.5 years, RLPD, through our intel and enforcement action, including the dog, not for all, but for a lot, has been responsible for over $600,000 street value in drug seizures, both here within the county and within the city of Billings. Everything stems, everything is
Absolutely.
connected. Aside from that, drug enforcement, for our drug enforcement operations that we are proactively going out and doing, it does require, I spoke with Lonnie about it, we agreed on trying to add in a line item to supplement some of that cost with us, because it is difficult to, pick a line item where it's specifically pertaining to. I did ask for an increase in vehicles and maintenance, because it seems like this last, this year,
Yeah,
specifically, it was kind of the perfect storm with the snow and everything included, were all vehicles, and it was a Dodge issue, with,
Hi,
cooling.
Chevy. Oh.
Yeah. Well, they all simultaneously kind of had issues with coolant issues and everything like that, and it all happened right in the middle of winter. So I asked for a slight increase there. Also with, new rifles, our rifles are outdated. I'm still running the same rifle today that I was approximately 20 years ago. They're very heavy, they're old, they are outdated, so I spoke about that.
Okay.
Cell phones, I asked for a slight increase in because
They're just going up.
they're just going up, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
What carrier do we use?
I'm sorry, oh, you use Verizon?
Have we looked at Mint Mobile?
I'm sorry?
I'm just kidding, I'm sorry, Mint Mobile, it was a.
I'm more than happy to sit down with Bonnie and discuss that, and if it's
Get a
something that,
bug.
Citywide, we're Verizon, so
Yeah.
we get
Yeah.
the benefit of doing it all.
so that's more of a citywide discussion,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
between the department and Bonnie, but I know that,
Have them all get jitterbugs.
I know that as a department, we rely heavily on our work cell phones, obviously, because
And
we
they
don't
need to
want.
work.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they need to work, and we don't want to utilize our personal cell phones, because
Oh, yeah.
anything law enforcement related that we have in our personal cell phones pertaining to a case could be seen as discovery in a
Absolutely.
court, obviously.
Well, and you want a reliable service, because I've noticed since we switched to Spectrum for the price, and they use Verizon towers.
That's what I have too personally.
But I've noticed that a lot of my text messages will fail, and I have to
Really?
resend them.
Oh.
So I don't know if it's an iPhone issue, or if
It's an
it's
iPhone issue,
is
because I've
it,
never had an
okay.
issue with it.
So I was blaming Spectrum.
Aside from the K-9 drug enforcement rifles and cell phones and, vehicles, Lonnie was,
Garage heater.
yeah, so those heaters, and we could, anytime you guys want to take a field trip back there and take a look.
That news right text?
Kyle, Pruitt, who owns the heating and cooling company here, fantastic guy.
Love him.
Every year he has to come and relight, and our sergeant also, is well versed in the heating realm. He does it too, but those heaters are from 19,
Right?
I think pre-1980.
Probably.
Yeah,
So
That's
for
back when the fire.
that heater, can't that come out of resort tax?
that's what I ate.
Or not, because it's part of this
Well,
building?
that was
It's more of
something,
so it's more of considered a replacement cost, not a, like, new.
yeah,
What about our grant that we're doing our building?
That
Um,
wasn't included, because
re-
that's a different building.
Oh, even though it's connected?
Is it a different legal description?
I don't know. It's not, so that's the police station, that's the city hall.
Yeah, I know.
Right, but they're
Legally, if
So-
it's one legal description, it's one building.
According to your fire insurance, it's all one building,
Okay. So, but the project itself was,
was four.
Well, I know there's a this year and a next year sort of a thing. I'm just,
I mean, we can,
sure, I had
I don't wanna-
Kyle write up a conservative estimate. Obviously, we don't want to break the bank with heaters. I mean,
Well,
we're heating
and
them, I'm sorry.
we can move it to resort tax. It's ultimately
Yeah,
up
I
to you
do.
guys to decide if that's something that you
Yeah,
guys
I mean,
consider.
you could,
well, and I think that's ultimately me, and then you guys approve it, but I would say, yeah, let's move it to resort tax if it can be removed to
Right.
resort tax.
So that's $8,000 extra dollars we can use
Understood.
out of general fund.
That's more than 5,000 in capital. so.
understood, yep. So, yeah, you could obviously break the bank with heaters. It's a good estimate, and, for that space itself and what's required of it.
And it'll last
I
20 years.
apologize, I didn't get a direction from the council on the dog. I know we talked about it, but is the council, what is the discussion on having some dog-related expenses as part of our general budget? I didn't hear.
Well, all the council hasn't talked about it yet, we're just now getting the information, and I guess my only thing in order for it to be paid out of the budget is just to know that it's improving our ability to handle drug cases or any type of case, that
Absolutely.
it's having a positive impact on that, and that it's worth the money.
I'll go on the
Or-
record right now and speak to that officially. The dog is most certainly a force multiplier. The dog is not only trained for drugs and apprehension, the dog is trained for article searches, the dog is trained for tracking and trailing. Juvenile, somebody with dementia decides to wander off, and we have a track that we can put the dog on, the dog will find them, situational dependent, obviously.
Right,
The dog is there to protect the handler as well. So one officer is now two. So there's a variety of, wide variety of, the dog's capabilities. So the other thing too is, yeah, the dog has been an absolute force multiplier with drug cases. And, obviously when we hit a house with a warrant looking for drugs or other We'll have the dog arm perimeter, and it cuts down, I mean, like, when people know that there's a dog there for enforcement action, things stay pretty calm.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
I'm just gonna say, as a previous K-9 handler, I can tell you that officer safety, that's your partner. I'm not a big guy, but I never had any altercations with big guys, because they saw the dog and they just,
Rod's blind, my partner's right over there.
And he's watching you.
Yeah.
so, and this is all factual, on-the-job
Yeah.
experiences that I've had. I've also experienced that they are a good deterrent. If you have a dog that has a reputation, in my circumstances, our local troublemakers would call to see if we were on duty. And if we were on duty, it was a really quiet night,
Yeah.
because they're a good deterrent. It's hard to measure other than,
Right.
you know, that officer experiences lower incidents
Yeah.
of, what
And-
the other
and-
officers are experiencing.
Perhaps, I mean, perhaps it's I don't know that we need a resolution from council with everyone voting to say that we support having,
Well, yeah,
The
all you need
dog,
to
or
do
do
is,
we
all
just
you
need
need to
to
do
say-
is approve the budget when we include it.
Okay. okay,
I will say that I'll be the SOB. My default reaction is when this dog was presented, it was presented that they were gonna do it with donated funds, not just initially, but ongoing.
Okay.
So my gut reaction is to hold them to that. But if council's overwhelming, or, you know, council's feeling and guidance and direction is, we're okay including it in the budget, I'm happy to do that. Then we just
Right.
have to figure out where we adjust the budget to make it fit.
I think that there are, you know, some limitations, guardrails on that, you know, I mean, if it's gonna cost as much, you know, depending on what it's gonna cost, you know, if it will fit in the budget.
I think that, a K-9 officer is a lot cheaper than a regular officer. And I think that when this was originally said that it's not gonna cost the city, I think that the dog has proven himself, that this program has proven itself. And therefore, the city should, $5,000 for another officer?
Yeah, so one thing I'll say, I can't go into great detail about, because it's an ongoing case. However, we did intercept some correspondence between drug dealers in Billings and drug users in Red Lodge. And the dealer in Billings flat out refused to come to Red Lodge and bring the user's drugs to him, because he says drug enforcement and everything that they have going on up there, there is no way in hell I'm coming to Red Lodge and I'm having drugs with me when I'm there. So that's a major win.
Yeah.
I heard feedback from Chelsea. Do you have thoughts on the dog as far as putting it in the budget?
My only concern is that, again, it's a part of his budget, if he feels that it's appropriate from his budget. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of typing, you guys are talking very fast. Again, I see a slight increase in that, but if we also can remove that resort tax out of the heater system out, I mean, I feel like that levels things out pretty substantially. So
Thank you.
I don't see a big increase for the police, or for law enforcement, especially if we can make that change. So again, I'm in the support of having.
So Gregory, remind me, the ask is $5K for dog maintenance, is that correct?
Yes.
Lonnie, will you go ahead and put that in?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, I lost it.
No, no.
Or you just realized I said yes and thought it's a fine time to be quiet on each other?
No.
No, but no,
No, I'll say my piece.
thank you, Chelsea, for putting it that way, because that's basically what I was trying to say, that, you know, if it was gonna blow the budget, it's a different story,
Yeah,
but it's not
again,
blowing the budget.
if you're increasing your budget substantially, then I see the issue, but if you're staying within your budget and we can move some things around to make that appropriate, that's where he puts his
Yeah.
priorities, and that's, end of the day, he's gonna know his
Well,
priorities better than anyone.
and we all know
Yep.
the stories of everything in the news that's happening in Billings, and we're only 60
Good.
miles away.
There is
So
still
it's
another
coming-
significant increase in that budget, but it's because we have allocated for an additional officer. However, that will either be offset by a grant. I don't have high hopes that it's gonna be offset by the school in the immediate near future, or we'll end up cutting it. I don't, you know, that's, so.
I'll speak to that. So I'm currently in correspondence working with Danae right now to apply for a federal cost grant, and the bottom line issue with that and what we're asking for is funding for a school resource officer. It's a great grant, and, I cannot compliment Danae's work enough on how hard she's working on it. She's pretty much put the entire thing together for me, because it's, grant writing is way over my head. So she's doing a very good job with that. I think our chances of obtaining the grant are good. Obviously, nothing is final, and I can't predict the future, but I have a very good feeling about that. She was sent, along with Lonnie, to a specialized school for grant writing, and it's money well spent.
And you guys wrote the letter of support that went in with that, so.
Yeah, and I've had teaching staff throughout the school district sign that letter of support. I've had, the sheriff's department is currently signing their letter of support.
Too bad the school board isn't.
I have principals from the school signing the letter of support. The school board has, members of the school board have signed the letter of support.
I've talked to school board members, just in general conversation. The feedback is they're in general support of the idea, but they haven't received a lot of information from their leadership on what you were talking about with. So the school board isn't receiving the information.
I'm more than happy to go to another
So-
school board meeting and do it again, so.
And the information I got yesterday is they're doing it, but they actually have a meeting this week, but they're prioritizing, and the boilers just come ahead of it. We love it, we want it, but boilers come first, is basically
And
the
I
latest
heard that
update I got yesterday.
the safety portion of that vote was really to, upgrade the little doorbells. It was not for a school resource officer.
I wasn't impressed with the ballot language.
I
Some
was
members
not
of the
either.
school board were not impressed with the ballot language. I'm not gonna mention names. However, I do know that when it was brought to my attention as a very big interest on the side of the school district, I worked on it a lot with, myself. I've discussed it time and again with Lonnie, many times with Danae, many times with the mayor. It was about 1 year and 8 months of work. So I'm still continuing, and as is the city of Red Lodge, still continuing to take it seriously, because I believe when I did my, oral board for chief, I said that was one of my top priorities.
Yeah, no, I
Great.
appreciate
Yeah.
that, 100%. And it may be, you know, if we get this grant and we establish the program, they'll learn and understand better how that's going to look and the benefits of it, so that then,
Well, yeah, and I
No,
can speak to it personally too, as a former student myself. Every time the police officer was in our school, I did not see it in terms of enforcement action. I saw it in terms of more of a liaison between the police department and the children and their parents. And that's kind of my focus and my vision for the program, is to have the officer there, not only as a security deterrent for an external or an internal threat, but as, I'll take a page out of the book of the Red Lodge Fire Department. They have these education programs with students that are huge. The students are super interested. I can't tell you the amount of students I knew when they were kids that are now on the fire department. And I'd like to see the same thing with the police department. Having local youngsters apply when they're old enough to put in for the police department, I think it's awesome, because they already have their,
definitely.
Are there any video presentations that, tout why a school should have a school resource officer that we could actually show to the school board? I think the school board doesn't comprehend the advantages, many advantages, not just safety, but
Yeah,
yeah, I would
if
like,
there's a
Well,
video or something we can present to them to
sure,
say,
I can speak to that until I'm blue in the face. However, what I don't wanna do is I don't wanna go in and give dramatics about, if this doesn't happen, this could happen. I don't wanna
I don't
I don't
wanna
wanna scare anybody, but there are, from my research, my training, my experience, my involvement with the school, the calls that I've taken at the school, the pros far outweigh any con. The only con that I can think of is financial, and that's across the board, everywhere you go, with
Yeah,
every
yep,
municipality,
absolutely.
every police department, every sheriff's office. It all comes down to money.
well,
That's the only con in my head that I can think of.
well, we absolutely appreciate your effort, and we're just doing the budget here, so do what you can. Absolutely, and, anything else about the, police budget that anyone wants to bring up with the chief while he's here, so we can let him go and go on to his next meeting?
Well, I'm getting the garage door fixed.
Oh.
It is an appointment that I need to keep.
Okay.
And I'm guessing that you have a 0 for machinery and equipment, desk computers?
I went through the computers that needed to be replaced, like now. Lonnie and I built into the last budget, and we just got all of the old computers that were like dinosaurs. I replaced, a sergeant's computer, a patrol officer's computer, and Danae's computer in the office. Those are the ones that need to be replaced. Mine is,
So
Fine.
so there's no money for next year's, so that's $4,500 that can go towards the police dog.
yeah,
So there's nothing in the budget,
yeah, I don't wanna say that something,
Mike?
Yeah,
yeah.
Computers fail.
I just wanna say that as far as computers go right
I
now,
think we're good.
I believe we're good.
Okay.
the only other question I had is with firearm supplies, mentioning that you're updating the current firearms, what happens to the old ones?
Those are traded in.
Okay.
And it's, straight across the board, so what we're looking at doing is trading our pistols, because it just came out that they're unsafe.
What's wrong with
To the
them?
policeman?
The 6-hour P320 has had issues with firearm deploying inside of holsters and officers being struck by it.
Well, that's
Oh.
nice.
Yeah, they're very rare, however, I don't like taking chances.
Nope.
The dealer out of Salt Lake that I'm currently dealing with, he's a law enforcement supplier, and we do business with him.
Okay.
What he's doing is he's taking all of our stuff straight across and then giving us a credit at our final cost. So, it's kind of,
Perfect.
it's money in the bank right now, is what we're sitting on.
And you're good with the 14,000 on training services?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Training amped up towards the end of this budget year, but I do have a lot of guys going out for, specialized details and assignments and investigative stuff, but, we did, yeah, I'm satisfied with 14 for sure.
Would that include the school resource officer?
For training, yes, that course itself is approximately 1 week long, and they take place throughout the state, throughout the year, mainly in Belgrade, and, the Billings Police Department has hosted them, so pretty close,
Okay.
yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Anything else
That's it for
on
me.
that part? Okay, thank you.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we continue on with the budget, let's go back to our main agenda, okay? So we can get that stuff carried out. Resolution calling for election ballot language disallow commercial marijuana cultivation within city limits.
So that's just on, we actually gave it to the county for our previous
Yes.
discussion. I was less than excited from the response we got from the county attorney. It was basically, this isn't even real yet, pass it, and then we'll spend time and effort and energy on it. And that was kind of like, you kind of missed the point. So we're passing, he said, I didn't see any initial high-level things, but I responded back and said, okay, we'll put it on the agenda, but at this point, I expect them to approve it and not come back with suggestions or changes. I can't guarantee that won't happen.
Okay,
But it was, it is, the response was such that there has already been a follow-up dialogue with it.
okay,
And in fairness, that's an elected position that doesn't report into the hiring chain, but it was kind of, yeah.
okay,
So, anyway, that's on for action as it was presented.
okay. All right. Chelsea, do you want to speak to that tonight, or do you want me to?
Yeah,
the
no, I
ballot.
can
Okay.
speak to the ballot language, that's fine.
Okay. Okay, resolution to approve T-bid fiscal year 25-26 budget. And that's just a simple resolution, that shouldn't be an issue. Chelsea, do you want to introduce that since you're since you're T-bid treasurer? Resolution number 3701, grant approval for the mayor to proceed with legal action to acquire the necessary authority to install underground pipe. Apparently, our, negotiations did not go through on the land deal.
So
Purchasing it?
what's happened is, yeah, I'm still hoping, there's still discussion going on. This could still end up being a non-issue before tonight, just the nature of the beast.
Okay,
They basically came back with a counteroffer that we can't legally sign for multiple different reasons. Just picking a random high number and then 2 or 3 other things that are not legal options. And so,
okay,
at this point, I've instructed the attorney to have, basically what we're doing is just an emergency injunction that says, yes, we have the ability to go in and replace a 10-inch line with a 16-inch line where there have been roads and utilities and pipes for decades.
Okay,
And so, I think this is an appropriate thing to have on the budget. I half anticipated her to be at this meeting, or certainly it was a possibility. She may just be coming tonight instead.
okay.
And so we'll deal with that. But I think it's still absolutely appropriate for us to keep it on there.
Okay, yeah, no, I just was the
Yeah.
status
She
of
did
it.
a
No, so
counteroffer?
the status is, like I said,
Okay,
we have basically offered her what we can legally offer her, and she's not taking it, so.
That's based on her own
Appraisal.
appraisal.
Well, there's actually, it's based on an appraisal that she had done, yes.
That's right.
Yeah, and so she had wanted to go get another appraisal, which was what was gonna happen in 2 weeks. My understanding is that has not happened. While we have, yeah, I'll leave it at that. So,
okay. Well, if this is still on the agenda tonight,
yeah.
then I
And
will
it
let
could-
you
and it could
speak
change-
to what,
It could change between now and then.
Right,
There
so
could be
yeah,
something that
so
comes
unless-
up and makes it
okay.
unnecessary, but.
so I'll probably just, when this gets brought up, I'll probably just be calling on you for an update on it and why we're doing it. I
Okay.
understand, okay. Approve interim city attorney contract.
Let me speak to this too. So
Thank you.
the current contract, let me rephrase it. The previous contract that had been in place had been there for, in somewhat of a variation, even predating our current attorney. When it was originally brought up, I had, when I was on council, I had suggested that the contract be written up by somebody other than the benefactor of the contract.
Duh.
And it didn't end up doing so. This time around, there was quite a lot of interest in the community. I ended up reaching out and working with, Ray Coons, who is one of the contract attorneys we have used previously, him and Sam Painter. And he drew up a contract that basically, it's an extension, but it didn't extend all the bad things of the last contract. So like the 6 months paid termination, so it's basically a 3-month extension. It is still my goal, budget-wise, we've left the budget the same, but it's still my goal, to split that up into 2 different things and have a civil and a prosecutor, and the league does offer civil services, so that may be where we end up on there, but we'll basically do an RFQ, but we now have 3 months to work that out. But this did it without extending on. When I had initially reached out, we had put together a copy that was just like a 3-month extension, and I was advised that's not what we want to do. And so that's how we have it. And then because it was a date involved, we wrote that in as one of the conditions of it's ultimately not valid until council approves of it. Ideally, this would have all been done beforehand, but we didn't do that. So this was the next best thing to do, is basically put it in front of council, and council say, yes, that's a good contract, we stand by it. Questions, comments?
So it's not really, if we're not extending everything of the original contract, it's not really a true extension.
True.
It's an,
It's a new 3-month
3-month
contract
okay.
for temporary,
temporary legal services?
Yeah, interim.
Interim, thank you.
Interim
That
services.
sounds good, okay.
So
So-
it's not an extension.
No, because if it was an extension, it would extend everything that was in
In
the
that.
existing
So
contract.
it's really.
It's just an interim contract.
Contract.
Yeah, it's an interim. I'm going up to where this is in the, oh yeah, and it actually is called interim on there, so, but
Okay.
to your point, it is very specifically not an extension of the previous contract. It is a new contract that covers the 3-month period we're currently in.
Is 3 months enough?
I think so. Having said that, I've been really slow and behind on homework on a lot of things.
Yes, that's a lot to do.
We have the option of extending this one if we needed to, but it is my hope that that won't be necessary. There's also several things, including the previous land thing that we're talking about, that I didn't want to switch horses in the middle of the race, so.
True.
Okay, all right, on to the budget. So, any more comments on the law enforcement services? Are we all good with that? I know we,
Yeah.
everyone, okay, okay. So I guess we're on fire protection and control, so.
And this number I threw in there is just a placeholder. So depending on what everybody decides, how much is gonna come out of resort tax and what a mill is worth, that will be more of a determination on that number. So
When do we find out the value of a mill?
not until the first part of August.
And have we,
Does this address the changes that have happened at the state level for property taxes?
No, because those changes go in, I think, the first of next year.
Next year?
Yeah, well, I'm not certain of that. I know there's a couple of them that don't go in until December. I don't remember where that part of the bill is, but we don't know until we know, and this is, either this year or next year, we're likely to see a bigger change.
Yeah, because I don't get the valuation
The-
sheet until
Well,
the very first
the-
of August.
The property taxes will go down, but the short-term rental taxes will go up, so.
and second
Well,
home?
the general gist is, and so I have reached out and talked to Jeremy, who his day job is Department of Revenue, and I actually had a meeting with, Brad Barker last week, and we sat down and went through this stuff. The assumption right now, which I think is good, and I have a letter into Kelly Heaton Kelly Lynch from the league. The assumption is that because they backwards calculated out, we get our 1/2 of the average rate of inflation over 3 years, and then they're changing that to up to 4, so it's actual inflation. But our number's not expected to change. It'll change what the value of mills are, but what we get for a budget shouldn't change. It will impact, like, for instance, and in fact, there's a good trust when this goes through that the number of mills will probably go up and the mills will be worth a little bit less.
So, when Billings is having all of their issues, is it because they have a bunch of different special districts
Yes.
and not, like, yeah, okay. So they're not just going off what they can assess. They're going off of, we have a safety district, we have a streets, it's all those
And
districts
part of the
that are
change-
going to lose
yeah,
money.
And part of those changes that they felt were a couple of municipalities that were going after too much rather than living within their means. We are not one of those municipalities.
We don't have a bunch of special districts.
But they're overall, they're probably twice as many mills as we are overall.
So, I guess, yeah, I guess it'll just be interesting to see how it plays out, because my understanding when I was reading about that bill was that if you were in a community that had primarily primary homes and not a lot of second homes or, you know, vacation rental type things, if you were mainly all long-term homes and primary homes, it would be a lowering of the property tax in your area. But because we're a resort community and we have a lot of second homes and short-term rentals, that we either will get more money or it'll be neutral,
We won't get more because they still have the cap
the cap, okay.
that stop us there.
So who-
That's gonna be our practical limitation.
So I guess I'm always curious, and like when the property taxes go up and we can only assess so much, is the rest of that money just going, and the county's the same, but we are, is that just going into the general fund then? That extra, that increase?
That is the question I have asked.
Like, where's that money
is
going?
When we only get half of the rate of inflation over the last 3 years, but our property taxes go up 50%,
Yeah,
where's all the extra money going?
yeah, exactly, where's that going?
I think most of it ends up in the equalization thing, but it still doesn't make sense to me, and nobody has explained it to me
Okay.
such that my tiny little brain can grasp it yet.
Not that you can explain it to my tinier little.
Well, so the general statement is, property taxes go to local government and school, go to municipalities. Income tax goes to the state.
Right.
So my question is, when they went up, great, and we're not getting it, who's getting it? But I think it's making its way to the schools is where it's making it. The equalization fund is what they call it, so that all the different counties get different amounts of money out. But it's not coming to us.
That would be a huge increase to the schools, and I just have not seen that across the board. I mean, all the schools in Montana are struggling. That would be very, very, yeah, but that's another story for another conversation for another time.
So
So,
going back to fire, I had a conversation with Tom yesterday because it had to do with resort tax budget.
Yeah.
And he pulled a new twist on me, which I'm not sure I agree with. We still need to have some follow-up conversations, that we had to have a new contract before we could pay a portion of this out of resort tax. And I think the logic behind that conversation was that they probably have to do a special fund to keep it separate, because our requirement is basically just, we get a letter from them saying it went to capital.
Okay.
So they would receive money from the city, and it would go into two separate funds. One is their general fund and one is a capital fund,
Okay.
which to me doesn't require a new contract. So there's a follow-up conversation there, because my thinking is, that I would like to spend 100 to 150 of that budget, since the majority of what they do is capital, and since our voters did say we can use it for capital expenses, I would like to pay a portion of that out of resort tax for the fire obligation.
So, I guess I kind of see where Tom is coming from, because our contract currently says that it'll be 28 mils.
So, but that to me translates into a dollar amount, and so if we say 28 mils is $300,000, and 150 of it's coming out of resort tax, then 150 of it comes out, but we're gonna do the same dollar amount.
But the new contract would come into effect because we're now stipulating how they can spend that money.
Yeah.
So,
Because it needs to be very
Right.
clear.
Yeah.
that, yeah,
that the amount that's coming out of resort tax of the.
Needs to be
28
spent on capital.
needs to
Right.
be spent.
So that is the discussion as of yesterday.
okay. Well, and, I mean, you know my feelings on it, so I won't reiterate them.
No, well, and then, but
I
there's a secondary portion of that as well, that says, if we're spending it on that, then it can't be spent on something else.
Right.
It's not available on something else.
No, I'm okay with spending some resort tax when we can on these things, you
Yeah.
know, definitely. I've always wished we could spend more on our police department, because those are the two, you know, agencies that are directly sometimes impacted by the amount of visitors we have. So,
Right.
that pay for the resort tax, the public health and safety of us and our visitors, so. But it was written a certain way, so that's the way it is. Okay, any more, do you have an idea on the timeframe of that? Will we have,
He and I are gonna hopefully get together. He called this morning during the first meeting. We talked about getting together later this week.
perfect,
Um,
okay. All right. Moving on, then, road and street services. Now, obviously, this is only 25% of the road and street services budget is coming out of the general fund?
So this is the salary for the other three operators and the street foremen that are not taken out of resort tax.
Okay,
We only have one employee that's taken out of street and parks and resort tax. This
Okay.
is the other percentage of the other,
okay.
employees.
And the reason why it's only 25% is that are they also being taken out of water and sewer?
Yeah, there's,
Okay.
so
Yep.
some of them
Okay.
get water, sewer, gas tax,
Okay,
so they are
okay,
kind of,
spread throughout, okay,
because they are in every
yes.
department and stuff.
Okay, so they don't take a lot out.
No.
Any more? Stop me if I'm going too fast. Street lighting, electric and gas utility services, that's just for all of the street lights that are paid through the city.
Yeah.
Correct, okay,
And the airport's a mill.
Yep.
1 mil.
Well, yeah, that number fluctuates every year. It's whatever Angela sends Bridger and I.
But the max will be 1 mil
Yeah,
right now.
sometimes it's less. Like last year, it was less than what a mill was, so.
Okay.
Weed control is, we just have to budget when we send out, or when we mow the vacant lots that people aren't mowing. And then we bill them, and then on the revenue side of it, that's
Comes back in.
factored in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Pretty simple.
all right. Animal control services.
We have animal control.
That's literally paying for our dog tags and supplies,
Yes,
and the publication in the paper saying, hey, license your dogs, please.
yes,
So
Yes.
those are the only two things that
okay.
covers.
Library services. Here again,
There, I'll just note on this, to let you guys know, the jump in wages, was kind of significant, but they did increase, the librarian, not the library director, but the librarian, they increased her hours, which then in turn, she was eligible for benefits, which she did take, that the opportunity to have insurance, so that's the increase, the majority of that increase.
And that was a conversation we had last year. So this is one of those where we increase their budget, but they allocate and dictate. We don't really spend it, we just tell them how much we're giving them.
But it also affects us, though, if we have to start paying benefits for an employee that
It
they
does,
make.
other than the conversation we had at the time is that it wouldn't increase their overall benefit going up. So,
Their overall budget.
their overall budget, it just changed the allocations of it.
Well, their overall budget last year was 272,000, and now it's 347. That's like 70.
Because, okay, so that's deceiving too, that 68,000 in there is a grant. So
Mm.
the
Money
offset will
okay.
be on the revenue side, so
Got
I
it.
have to put it into the budget side, so that does make it skew the
Yeah.
amount by
Yeah.
a lot.
But their overall budget did not.
I was gonna say
It
that,
Okay.
did
that's
not
all I
change.
need, 1,000
Okay.
is really.
The other thing that we did do on their budget, and I don't know that it shows itself on here,
I think you have the most up-to-date one, Dave, because are you talking about the capital outlays of?
yeah, I was about to talk about that. There was some capital that they didn't spend last year
Mhm.
that we basically re-put in this year. It
The
came down, it
85,000?
came down a little bit. And in fact, that was kind of related to the amount that capital, we carried it over because we don't want to create an environment where you spend it or lose it. But at the same time, it did end up going down because of the extra position converting to full-time.
So, we don't know do we know what our, amount we're actually putting into the library budget is?
Not yet,
Because we're no longer doing like 7 mills anymore.
no.
No, it's a dollar amount.
Yeah.
So, what we did is we calculated, and let me see if I can refresh my memory on it. What we did is the same thing we did last year. We went back and kind of saw what the trend was over the last few years, and we matched that amount.
Yeah, so that 85,000 you see on the notes for revenue,
Mhm.
that amount will change, but that was just,
Was that what we did last year?
that's her number that she plugged in there, but
Oh, what was,
it's more than what we gave them last year.
do you remember what we gave them last year off the top of your head?
I'd have to go down.
Their overall budget last year was 263. Their initial request this year was 281. So there was a 20 grand difference, and we ended up taking that down in the capital.
No, I guess my question was like, how much did the city contribute last year to their budget, and how much are we budgeting for this year?
I'll defer to
So-
Lonnie and see
I can
if
go
he can
back.
pick that up.
Okay, okay. Sorry.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Because, I mean, that really boils down to what we're approving here, because, I mean, that, like you say, we kind of give them the ability to, this is what we're giving you, do with it what you will.
They know better than we do.
So here, I just have one copy of this. So this is their budget and how we did it.
Okay.
Well, I also noticed that the ground maintenance dropped a lot because isn't the city doing
Yep,
it?
we're
Yep.
doing it. So this was last year's
Okay.
budget, and this is their request. So you notice that this went from 102 to 125, but it was really 117.
Okay.
And so if you look at the difference there, it basically takes out that difference there. So we're basically the same as what we were.
We did 72,644 last year.
And this year we are doing,
Well, we
Well, she's asking for 85,000.
for 85,000.
I think we give them 72. Sorry. That's my personal thought on it, but
Did you want to look
I
at that
would
as well?
love to.
Oh, it's time to be wrapping.
I realize. We're almost done here with we have one more thing on general budget, and we'll, and I don't think we,
When is the anticipated date that we'll be passing budget? It's in September,
End of
right?
August.
It's the last in August?
Usually, we try to get it done the last meeting in August, because I have to have it submitted by the first Thursday following
Following the first
Tuesday.
Monday of an odd
Yeah.
Tuesday, yeah.
yeah,
Yep. So I
So-
always try to get it
okay.
done.
Is Jody planning on attending, a council meeting on
We do not
that?
have a date set, so
Okay.
I've got 4, not counting tonight, I've got 4 council meetings between now and then to
Okay,
divvy up amongst budgets.
and yeah,
Do you guys still want to do like a separate admin meeting, like you guys were talking?
no, I think we'll just keep going, plugging through this. I think this is our most important thing right now. The only other thing we have, I don't know, the library budget's tough. I kind of agree with Chelsea. I don't really want to see the city's contribution increase significantly, you know, because they do have so many other avenues of funding.
Yeah, and my
And-
thought with it too is kind of like we said with Schrock, it's like you can set your priorities with the funding that's provided. And to continue to have to increase, and if you don't receive your funding and asking the city to offset that, I don't think that is
Mhm.
something that we can afford to do, and
That's more than a 10%
What did you
increase.
say it was this last year?
72,644.
So,
And she's asking for 85,000, so that's more than
and I
a 10%
actually
increase.
I actually have, when I wrote down, the amount we were gonna give them was 72,644, so that's,
Okay.
it's literally holding the same, so.
Okay, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I just,
Yeah,
the 85,000 would be significant, but that's more than a 10% increase,
that's quite a bit.
so. It's like more like a, what, 15, over a 15% increase. Have my
Can't
math.
do that math in my head.
So, okay, so, yeah, do with that what you will, Mayor, so, and Lonnie. So next is Public Works Parks, Personal Services, Workers' Comp, and Contract Payments.
And there's nothing budgeted because we only have the one employee.
And it's all out of resort tax, so,
The only reason it still shows up on this report is because of the way this report works.
goes
And
back.
It goes back a couple
Okay.
years in the actual.
So, yeah, so we're done with general fund. Next up is resort tax. We do have a resort tax meeting next week, I believe. So, hopefully,
Next Tuesday.
next Tuesday, so hopefully we will get our recommendations from that meeting, and that will help us. Perhaps we can ask, a representative, someone besides their council representative to be here. On that, I don't know, at our next meeting or at the city council meeting coming. We usually try to do that, before we approve the overall budget, just to have a member of the resort tax, usually Tom, because he's the chairperson of that, come and talk to the resort tax budget. Well, so, if there's nothing else, right? Any, other public comment or anything like that? Anybody online? Then we will adjourn the admin and finance meeting.
Thank you.
Yes.